Hi, everyone. My name's Dr. Adam Harrison. Thank you for joining me today. And in this video, we're going to be talking about psychological safety, humble leadership, how this relates to high performance of professionals in the workplace, specifically the application of high performance in athletes to professionals. And we're also going to be touching upon the subjects of burnout and moral injury. And I'm really, really excited to be joined today by my good friend and learned sports psychologist, Dr. Brendan Meany. And I'll just hand over to him to introduce himself, and then we'll get started with the interview, if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure. I love the community that we built, where we're just learning from each other and bouncing back and forth. And this is a really cool opportunity. So thank you very much for having me. But I'm a doctor of sport and performance psychology. And I use psychological interventions, principles, and skills to help individuals and organizations align their behaviors with their desired outcomes. So pretty much I work in human flourishing, and I help people and organizations function optimally. And some of the takeaways that we want out of this conversation that we've talked about is we want to talk about how organizations and leaders purposefully design psychologically safe environments. And then if individuals are in an unsafe psychological environment, how they can cope on their own and develop mental skills to help them manage that challenging environment.
Fantastic. This is going to be a really rich and powerful discussion, I think. I'm honored that you joined me. You're such an expert in this area, so thank you. Thanks so much for your time. So should we start with the basic opening for the conversation then of what psychological safety is and what your definition is, what it means?
There's a lot of ways that people view psychological safety, but from my prism, it's one that you have a group understanding that bringing up ideas, asking questions, concerns, making mistakes will not lead to punishment and humiliation. So it's a norm that we understand that we're all fallible human beings, so we all make mistakes. And even the person at the top, no matter how much experience they have, no matter how smart they are, they make mistakes as well. And when you have that culture that is from the top to the bottom, a lot of times you find that people are happier to come to work. People are more enthusiastic. They have more skin in the game. They're more likely to give better effort, have higher intrinsic motivation. And the organization and the individuals just perform better, and they function more optimally when you have this group of people who come together and say, I understand that I'm valued. I understand that if I do make a mistake, I'll have the opportunity to fix it, but it's more of a learning opportunity than it is something that is punishable.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks so much for that. So we're talking about humble leadership and the sort of relationship between psychological safety and humble leadership. So if you could tell us a bit about humble leadership and then explain how this is a foundational component of psychological safety, that'd be great. Thank you.
It would sound cliche to say it all comes from the top, but really the culture that the leader sets is the way that people follow, and a lot of the ways that the culture is carried out within the membership. I don't think leaders, and from my experience, leaders aren't the ones who they kind of use their framework to set the culture in conjunction with the people who they're leading, right? You don't want to lead people and not ask their opinion about anything, because then you have a little bit of dissension. But they kind of set the culture and develop it with the people, and then the people are the one who carry it out. So having that type of humility to not only ask them what they want, but also a lot of them the time and the space to exercise that's a major component of humble leadership. But humble leadership really stems from listening more than dictating. So it's more listening to the people that you're leading, and as opposed to telling them. It's admitting mistakes and adopting a growth mindset. It's more about cultivating genuine relationships with followers. There used to be the stigma that you got the administration on the left and the peons on the right, or this air of superiority that because we're in the spot or because of how much money we make, we're not really interacting with the people below us. And I think that's really changed culturally. I think the way people work and how they want to work is no longer with that divide. It involves other people in the decision-making process. And for me as a leader, why I do that is not only are we going to probably going to solve a solution faster with more brains in on the problem, but I'm going to get better ideas because I don't have all the ideas. And as brilliant as you are, and the people we interact with, like, they don't have all the answers either. So you get faster solutions, but you also get more people involved. And they also, and finally, a humble leader will develop people first. You're more of a transformational leader opposed to a transactional. They want you to be your best self. They want you to be happy. And they don't look at you as a number or a widget or one more rung to climb the ladder. And that really comes from my rugby background. That's a big All Black thing. I'm a big, as you know, New Zealand All Blacks fan. And that really comes from a lot of their organizational structure that, and I say good people make good All Blacks. So they're really worried about developing the person before they're developing a rugby player. So those things are really the cornerstone of humble leadership. And when people put those in place, they have more organizational buy-in. They have more people excited to come to work. They have more people enthusiastic about solving problems. And the more people you have pulling on the rope, in my opinion, the faster that boat is going to move, or whatever you seem to be pulling. So
yeah. Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for that detailed summary. So there seems to be, correct me if I'm wrong, certain things in common with compassionate leadership and servant leadership, all the kind of kind and caring leadership styles. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, extremely fair to say, but they still have to lead and they still have to take direction, but it's knowing when to take direction opposed to always being in control. I can only imagine what that would do to a leader trying to micromanage every single thing. Like it would drive me crazy. I'm not, probably one of my weaknesses is not being crazy detail oriented, maybe allowing too much space for people to work. But on the contrary, I don't know how people micromanage and nitpick every single thing that people do. I couldn't live like that, to be honest with you.
And it sounds when you look at different leadership styles, like the framework provided by Daniel Goleman, it sounds like there are quite a few of the different styles there. Like there's a coaching element to it, there's a democratic element to it, there's an affiliative element to it, but equally, when someone has to, lead, when the kind of when the chips are down and someone has to make a decision, then there's the sort of the kind of controlling leadership has to come in as well at times.
Yeah, and I also understand that too. I once worked for a football coach who many things I didn't agree with, but one thing I did, it stuck with me, that he said, I'm the one who has to answer the questions. So at the end of the day, he's the one who had to go in front of the media and he had to answer why he did this or not did this, or answer the athletic director. And I completely understand that. Some of the things leading up to that, I didn't agree with, but when your name is on the company or your name is on the department, I understand you gather as many opinions as you can, but also there is a time to lead when, based off my experience, this is why we should go this direction. And then you have to make a compelling argument too. You get buy-in.
Yeah.
So there's both elements of it. You can't just roll out the balls and let people go run around the gym and do whatever they want. There has to be some sort of structure and some sort of rationality behind why you're doing what you're doing. And people respect that. People really respect it.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for that. Okay, so we've defined what psychological safety is. We've defined what humble leadership is, and how they're related. So can we now go on to talk about how psychological safety and humble leadership improve creativity and why that's important as well?
So, I mean, creativity is solving problems, really. People think creativity only lies in the arts. No, creativity is all around us. Creativity is how you approach something that you've done over and over again, and then find a new novel solution. It's just really trial and error. And human beings do that in every element of their life. And if you have a humble leader who promotes psychological safety and encourages risk taking, encourages people to learn, people to grow, people to fail, you're going to find that it's going to create these new pathways that might not have been available before. Again, going back to the idea that, yeah, the leader has the ultimate say in most organizations, but they don't have all the answers. And you might, by allowing people the freedom and the safety to take these risks, you might create some sort of process that, especially in the medical field, might save lives. Without that, without people experimenting a little bit within the bounds of what the medical guidelines are, obviously, but without people trying these new things, you might be stuck in your ways, and you might not evolve, and you might not adapt. And they're really finding organizations that are the most successful, are the most malleable and adaptable. It's not who are hardline and set in their ways, that they're open to change. They're open to allowing new things to happen, and they welcome it, and they invite that process. And then going back to what I said before, creativity can find faster and more efficient solutions. Think about it, if you did the same morning routine you did when you were 10, and you do it now, you probably wasting a lot of time in the bathroom. So, I mean, it's just an evolving thing. And being a new father, I'm finding this out as well, that if you think that as my daughter grows, if I think that she can do the same thing at 5 months that she does at a year and a half, I'm setting myself up for disappointment. Yeah. So, and then just that also, creativity promotes thought diversity and engagement. And obviously diversity of people is incredibly important, but what a lot of people don't talk about behind the diversity of people is the diversity of experiences that they bring, and then the thought diversity. And I think you have to have that representation. But for me, one of the benefits behind diversity of people is the unique ideas and perspectives that they bring. And some of the things I learned from our colleagues all around the world, some of the people from Ireland, some of the people from the UK, some of the people who've joined our group from Australia, the perspectives have been very eye-opening for me.
Yeah. So something is just kind of coming to my mind while you were talking about that, and creativity and psychological safety. And there are studies that show that conflict is an essential ingredient for creativity and innovation, and that without people having sometimes quite robust discussions about things, ideas wouldn't move forward. You wouldn't get into the next version 2.0 and 3.0 of things. So can perhaps just talk about kind of psychologically safe conflict and how we can ensure that so that the conflict sparks creativity as well.
You and I go through this all the time. You and I bat ideas back and forth with each other, and sometimes you give me poignant feedback that if I didn't think you had my best well-being, that you were my friend, my colleague, and a confidant, I might take it the wrong way. You've given me feedback on things that, no, that's not, I don't know if I would go that direction. And I didn't say, well, Adam's mad at me. I said, Adam's a trusted and valued friend. He's not telling me this. He's telling me I got something in my teeth because I'm about to go give an interview on Zoom. not because he's being mean, but because he cares about me. And that really comes from the whole umbrella of psychological safety, that if you have an environment where discourse is encouraged, but polite discourse has been modeled and exemplified, that's going to permeate throughout the organization. And that polite and constructive discourse from the top will help people navigate some of those challenging conversations. People think that this, like having a disagreement, always has to lead to an argument. It doesn't. Or difference in opinion has to lead to some sort of blow up. No, if you have that trust, that safety within your group, and something that you and I've developed, and that you developed with other people, and I've developed with other people, and you view the feedback, or you view the challenging of ideas as an opportunity to grow, as opposed to a hit on your ego, or opposed to someone trying to usurp you, or someone trying to take you down, that is not only going to bring about better solutions to problems, but people are going to be happy, and they're going to enjoy the mental exercise. People think that it's a common misbelief that people want to just put on the drip and sit there and be told what to do. When you give them that option, that becomes a fallback. But when you give them the option for mental simulation, human beings are going to naturally take that. Yeah. They're going to take that and run with it and enjoy the mental exercise and the opportunity to stretch their abilities. And but that really comes from the top. And that if you allow that, if you encourage that type of discussion, then it's gonna go throughout the group of people.
Yeah. It sounds like there's a huge amount of emotional intelligence involved in that as well. There's a sort of acceptance from the humble leader that the conflict needs to take place to move things forward, but to ensure that kind of it happens in an arena of psychological safety, and for the team members to accept that they may be pushed out of their comfort zone, challenged, but it's being done in a fair and reasonable and safe way, which is not personal, not personal to them. It's for the kind of the betterment of the project or the organization or whatever.
Oh, absolutely. And a motivation happens, and anxiety and stress happens when people's mental models or either don't come to fruition, or they don't know what to expect. So if you, from the get-go, if you're going to retool the culture, or you're starting a company and you set these parameters right away, whether a company or an organization, or you move up the ranks to a leader, and you set these parameters right away, people are going to know what to expect. People have that. It's like mental GPS. People get anxiety while driving when they don't know where they're going. Okay, well, now we have this wonderful tool that is a guiding factor that not eliminates, but lessens that significantly.
Yeah.
When you set this framework of this structure and this expectation that we are going to disagree, but we're going to do it respectfully, we're always going to come with solutions and purposes, opposed to just complaining, and we're going to do it based off of research, or based off of past practices, or whatever it might be. Don't come to me with one of my good friends is a big time college football coach, always says, I love ideas. We can bat around ideas when we're having coffee all the time, but when we're in a meeting, please come to me with a solution that is proven or has some sort of merit, and let's not just allow the ball of yarn to spin, because that just brings in negative thoughts, and then you're not really doing anything, and it's not nearly as productive. And then you're wasting the players' time when we're doing this. You're wasting everybody's. So please bring a solution, and let's make this meaningful, opposed to just complaining and airing our grievances. And there's time for that. I don't think, let's not say you can't do that, but let's do it when we're not all coagulated and let that ball of negativity spin out of control.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you. So we've talked about psychological safety, humble leadership, creativity, safe conflict. So how does all of this pertain to high performance in general?
Just encourages collaboration. I'm a big believer in the faster alone, but further together, and that allowing those ideas to take place, allowing those people to bring in fresh thoughts and possibly change the direction of something. You might be one idea away from changing the way that you market to a group of people. You might be one logistical process away from moving your goods quicker if you just listen to people. And there's so many cases of that where finally a leader going down and working with somebody who's operating a forklift, or a hospital administrator and going and working with an orderly, kind of like that was a show on ABC about the boss, undercover boss kind of thing. When they go down and they finally see what they deal with on a day-to-day basis, they're like, oh, why did I not think of this? Well, you're so far removed from it that you didn't realize what the issue was. You were more dictating than you were listening. And so it just encourages collaboration and best practices, really. And then it brings people into the fold, makes them feel part of the organization. I don't know why anybody would want to lead people and not know more about their employees. My cousin was part of a brewery from the ground up. They went from 6 employees to 200, shipping all over the world. They got bought out by a new company, and it said, for my first day that my child was born, with the old leadership, they opened a savings account for my child. The new management doesn't even know I have kids. So that goes in with so many other things, and we don't have time for that. But now with this new management, my cousin no longer had meaning at his job, and he subsequently left a year later. And he went from being in on this really cool culture and being part of the ground up and seeing this evolve from someone's garage into a massive warehouse. He's had great meaning. He has so much pride in what he did. And I loved hearing about his job because he loved what he did. And that was just so infectious. So it increases meaning, but it also increases autonomy, and people feel valued, and people are vested, and they're intrinsically motivated. And most importantly, they're happier. Happy employees or happy workers are more productive. Right? Think about how much wasted energy people put at their job of complaining or this and that. Like, I'm not saying you can eliminate all of it, but what if we were able to minimize that, and now people are more focused on their task opposed to complaining about their boss, or complaining about this process, or why am I a nurse who is taking care of 8 people and we don't have enough staff? I'm unhappy, and now not only am I shorthanded because I can't take care of my patients adequately, but now I'm also doing it with a bad attitude. There's just better ways of doing this, and making people feel valued and intrinsically motivated. That's always good for business. It's always good for performance.
Thank you. A couple of things jump to mind. Now you've said all that. I think, as you said, people want to come to work and feel valued, but I guess they want their contribution to feel valued, don't they? They want their ideas to feel valued. They want to be able to share their ideas in an environment without fear of being ridiculed or dismissed. That's as you say, humans will thrive from kind of being able to do that, share their kind of intellectual processes or whatever, in that kind of I don't know what you think of this, but the whole there's no such thing as a bad idea thing, so everyone feels like they can share their ideas without fear of being ridiculed.
Absolutely. And that there's no bad idea. People say that all the time, but then again, emotional intelligence from the leader, a lot of times they'll say, oh, there's no bad idea, but then they'll disregard people. So
yeah.
all that we're talking about, this theory is all great, but I work all in applied psychology. So I take a lot of the theoretical and I try to sum it up and make it very digestible for people, number one. Number two, make it as easily applicable and quickly as applicable in their own lives to the individual as possible.
Yeah.
All this is all well and good, but there's no bad idea. And then someone raises their hand and say that's a bad idea, or you disregard them. That permeates throughout the organization. And the way you behave is going to be, and the way you carry yourself is going to be way more influential than any core values you put on a board or anything that you tell people in a meeting when you first take over. The proof is in the pudding. And I think great leaders, that always comes to fruition over a long period of time. And I think demonstrating that on a daily basis and reminding yourself of that, because we all have things going on in our lives. And when we get stressed, when the pressure is on, a lot of times people either deviate away from their plan or they deviate away from, who they really are. If you're on 3-4 hours of sleep and you're in attending and something happens with a nurse doesn't get you what you need, or something isn't cleaned up properly, when they're stressed, when they're overwhelmed, sometimes they might act out of character. Well, how do we minimize some of these barriers to achievement? How do we minimize some of these barriers to high performance, and having that plan that you can revert yourself back when you might feel anxious, when you might feel stressed, or being a leader who's vulnerable enough to say, I need a minute. I'm going to go do some diaphragmatic breathing. I'm going to go get a cup of coffee real quick. Let me think about this and come back to you with when I have my thoughts clear. Pete Carroll is famous for that, and not everyone has the luxury that Pete Carroll has. He's the head football coach of the Seattle Seahawks, but he's been known to close the door and go in his office. I don't know what goes on in there, but he will get, apparently it's magic because he's a Super Bowl winning coach, but he's able to get himself in the right headspace to deal with an issue before practice. He'll go and have a little bit of time alone and then get himself in the right framework to then go be the best coach that he has to be for his players. And I think when you have that humility, when you have that vulnerability, like, hey, hang on, just give me a sec. Let me think about this and let me react appropriately. And I think that goes a lot further than someone saying, oh, hey, that guy Meany over there, doctor, huh? He can't handle the stress. No, everyone deals with stress differently. And if they did think that, I would say, hey, I'm a fallible human being. And so we all make mistakes and we all make them. And I really think that the proof is in the pudding with a leader. Cream always rises to the top, but it happens at different times for people.
So many neurons firing here. You make me think of lots of different things that I'm not going to take us off track, but I think a return conversation where we maybe talk about civility and incivility, and how the treatment of team members by their leaders really knocks off their productivity and reduces their loyalty to the organization, and in turn makes them, frankly, disinterested or dismissive with clients, which obviously affects the company's bottom line. So much good stuff. Maybe we'll have another chat about that if you're up for it.
I'll put on the pot of coffee at 5 a.m. again. We'll do the whole 6-hour time difference, and we'll make it work, buddy.
Lovely. Thank you. Okay, so we talked about high performance in general and how it encourages collaboration, fosters meaning, makes people feel more part of the team and more valued, increases autonomy, and makes people feel they've got more skin in the game, I think was the phrase you used. Great phrase. So how can this be related to the practice of medicine then, do you think?
So in my research, and I'm new to this. I was brought in by people like you and our good friend Derek Davison, Rashmi Shrum, Dr. Michael Montel, Sammy Abrams, Fiona Mackin, Jonathan Fenn, a lot of these people that we've kind of got in this physician wellness little powwow. And by the way, so fulfilling, so enjoyable. The learning that takes place, as well as the friendships, to me, is such a cool thing. Such a cool thing. Anyways, one thing in my research I found is that one of the issues with physicians is a disconnection, and that they've lost meaning in their job. And to me, that is the most alarming and potentially dangerous thing, because you have people's lives in your hands. Any healthcare worker, to any degree, has a major responsibility. And when you have either a loss of identity, or you're no longer connected with what you're doing, that's grounds for some serious things that could happen, some serious consequences. And what I would do with physicians is help them reestablish their identity, help them reestablish why they're here, and develop something that is quick, actionable, that they can use, whether it be a symbol on their wrist, whether it be a self-talk, whether it be retelling themselves a story about when they were really involved with the family and their level of care, help bring them out of some sort of situation. To me, that helping them do that will then increase better patient care. And that's really what the ultimate goal is if helping you be connected to the people so you can best serve them, not only from an understanding component and listening to them and meeting their needs, but also an effort component. I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't want to say people show up not ready to give their all, but I'm sure that somewhere in the history of the world that has happened, where medical doctors show up and, oh, okay, another patient, here we go. And just kind of redefine what they're doing and re-put purpose back into their life. And then we went back to, where do you place your attention? You know, I spoke about the feedback you've given me. Do I place my attention on some of the criticisms you gave me, or do I look at that as, wow, Adam gave me really good suggestions on how to make this better? So how do I use that to be a better me, opposed to being more about ego, more about, well, Adam personally attacked me? No, Adam didn't do that, because Adam's my friend and Adam cares about me. Adam wants to see me do well. And when you have that, when you retrain your brain to look at feedback differently, it's almost like a cognitive behavior therapy. You're looking at the stimulus and you're rewiring how you view that stimulus, and you're rewiring how that influences your thoughts, and how those thoughts influence your behavior, and how those behaviors influence your outcome. So where are you placing your attention? Are you placing your attention that in the middle of surgery, a doctor spoke to you curtly because something went wrong? Or are you saying there was an immediate need and that I need to get moving, and they needed me to understand the urgency of the situation? So yeah, where do you place your attention? And do you have a growth mindset? Are you using this as a way to climb up the ladder in your organization? Or are you saying that I'm here to learn, I'm here to grow, where I am on day one will not be where I'm at a year from now, and where I'm at a year from now will not be where I'm at 5 years from now? I go back, and everyone, you and I are probably going to cringe at this podcast. And I hope we cringe at this podcast, because 5 years from now, we say, wow, we learned this, this, and this, and this, and we've developed as people, and I'm a better practitioner. And yeah, 5 years ago, I didn't know that then, but now I know this. And so are you adopting that growth mindset? Are you looking for the immediate solution or the immediate satisfaction? Or are you here to develop? And then for how are we using mental skills? Are we using self-talk? Are we using imagery? Are we improving our focus and our concentration? Are we doing the things outside of work that are going to help us be better at our job? And that really comes down to self-care, diet, exercise, sleep. Are you meditating? Do you do yoga? You know, I'm an avid yoga teacher and practitioner. And are you doing these things that help you unwind from work? Are you going home and picking up a happy meal? Not that a doctor or adult would eat a happy meal, but are you picking up a Big Mac? Speaking about learning, I won't use that one again, but are you picking up fast food on the way home and then drinking alcohol and then sitting there and watching Netflix? Are you on social media watching everybody else's successes and then feeling bad about yourself? It's what you do to take care of yourself to make you a better physician. And this is another big component, not only the disconnection from their practice and feeling overwhelmed, but a lot of physicians I'm learning don't take care of themselves adequately, and especially this is not taught in medical schools. They have like a 1 hour lecture about, many of them, I should say, have a 1 hour lecture about physician wellness. Well, going back to some of our good friend, Dr. Darren Davison, what he's doing is merging and this is brilliant, by the way, he's merging a lot of sports psychology and a lot of athlete techniques or athlete wellness techniques with a physician. And he's trying to say, all right, well, athletes take care of themselves this way so they can be top performers. How do we apply that to healthcare? And I think that self-care for everyone is so important. I think the pandemic highlighted that especially, but especially for healthcare practitioners. If they're not at their 100%, then the patient care ultimately is going to suffer.
Wow, that's some fantastic advice there, and so much resonated. You know, the dealing with the 𝐏𝐻 senior colleague, and you know, I always talk to clients about depersonalizing that. You know, what's the story behind the story? You know, why is it that they've been 𝐏𝐻 that day? Is it a life or death matter, or is it that, you know, they had a minor car accident on the way to work, or a tiff with their partner, or whatever? You know, what's the reason for it? Just depersonalize it, and reframe things. You know, then kind of reframe it. Absolutely. Just, you know, so one of the things you mentioned before was about, you said you probably this wasn't the case, or you didn't want to say it was the case, but physicians just kind of turning up to work and you know, kind of being dismissive of patients and so on. Well, we know that goes on in the condition of burnout, don't we? In physician burnout, and I experienced that a couple of times in my career, and that was one of the most prominent symptoms for me, was that I was sitting there in a room with a patient, you know, just completely lacking empathy for them, just totally disinterested in what they were saying, wishing that they weren't even in the room with me. And so, I mean, in terms of that, what do you have to say? What do you have to speak to about your high performance techniques and helping with physician burnout?
So setting those grounds, or that expectation of psychological safety, that makes people feel more involved, and it can't always prevent disengagement. Right? Everyone has their own experience that they bring to the table, and that physician might be going through a divorce, or they might have lost a child. There's, like you said, there's a story behind the story.
Yeah.
How do we do things smarter and not do anything dumb on purpose, where we are creating that disconnection, where we are that, because if I'm the hospital administrator or the attending on the floor, and I'm dressing down people, and I'm doing practices that are psychologically unsafe or negligent in my preparation, how is that affecting the physician? Because again, we can't control your life or other physicians' lives 24 hours a day, but I'm just big on how do organizations minimize barriers to success. And that, to me, psychological safety is a barrier to a high-performing environment and a high-performing person. And that is something that empathy and emotional intelligence and appropriately placing your attention on the way you speak to people and being present and being, not having a million things around your brain. And that's really hard to do, especially in a hospital setting. But how do you retrain your brain to focus on the here and now? And that might be taking a second to put your arm around a doctor and say, hey, are you doing all right? I think people forget, especially with bottom lines and when quotas have to be met, people forget about that. People forget about that interpersonal relationships are the most meaningful thing that we have as people. And not to sound too flower child kind of thing, because I do approach everything from a standpoint of benevolence, but making sure that you're taking care of the individual is a good way to just ask them, hey, how can I help you?
Yeah.
Are you doing okay today? And I think a lot of people gets put to the wayside based off of other goals or other needs and more transactional things opposed to transformational things. And then ultimately, if you don't do that, and you do have someone who's not giving you the best patient care, you could have serious consequences on your hands. Very, very drastic things can happen.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously we're talking about humble leadership. So when you say checking in on the doctors, are you talking about their leaders, their medical leaders, checking in on them?
Well, them checking on the people that they're leading, but each other.
Mm.
That culture of care, as I said, the leader sets the culture, hopefully with the input from the people underneath them, but the membership are the people who carry out the culture. If you're going back to my sporting background, as a rugby coach or American football coach, it's their job to make sure that the culture of hard work is permeated throughout everyone. And
yeah.
Or things that we want to do. Say if you have certain goals you want to achieve on defense. All right, no jumping off sides. We want to make sure they create turnovers, and we want to make sure we have a lot of people around the ball to make a tackle. Those goals are then carried out by the people. They're the ones who are reminded of those goals. They're the ones who have to say, hey, we only have 2 turnovers this game. We got to get 1 more, because that increases our chances of winning. When it comes to only from one voice, it's not nearly as powerful.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
I mean, at a funeral for a loved one, do you want one person there to give you a hug, or does it feel better when you have 800 people? I know we had 650 people come through my dad's funeral. I never felt more loved in my life than when that happened. I'm one of the most difficult days of my life. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. I'm just going to move on before we close. Just to talk about, it's a sort of a bit of a controversy. Obviously, burnout is very topical at the moment, and quite rightly so. And it's a really important thing for the spotlight to be on and for us to be talking about. But there's also this concept of moral injury. I've just got a few notes here I'm going to read out. So one of the definitions of moral injury is the social, psychological, and spiritual harm that arises from a betrayal of one's core values. In healthcare, for example, many healthcare workers were forced to make decisions regarding which patient among many would have access to the limited number of ventilators and which wouldn't. Morally injurious experiences can cause complex feelings of guilt, remorse, shame, and anger. It can lead to persistent self-criticism, feelings of unworthiness, thoughts of being unforgivable, and feeling like you're permanently damaged. Moral injury is thought by some to be a better concept than burnout, because with burnout, the cause is placed on individual clinicians, whereas with moral injury, the cause is squarely placed on the wider system. So the solutions that you've, the excellent solutions that you've given us, to helping reduce psychological safety, they do seem to lie with the individual, the self-care and the mental skills, the self-talk, the imagery, adopting growth mindset. All of those things seem to be more on the individual. So how would you say that they can apply to physicians and other clinicians experiencing moral injury, given that the cause is more on the system than the individual?
Well, what is the most basic and guiding principle that you have as a physician? What was the oath that you took day one of medical school?
Primum non nocere.
Yeah.
First do no harm.
Yeah. You is your duty. You take a sworn duty that you are going to do everything you can to help people. And when you are in a situation where the organization is not allowing you to do that, that is a major violation of not only psychological safety, but also moral injury, as you speak about. Hospitals that are understaffed, that are trying to treat patients, not because they're not making money, but because they're not providing the adequate either PPE, or they're not providing enough nurses or other service workers to help the doctor be their best. That is a major violation of that. And we all got to that position because there is a psychologically unsafe environment. If you as a doctor don't feel comfortable going to your boss and saying, I need more ICU trained people, I need more people with this specialization so I can be a better doctor, I can be a better physician, and they're either ignoring that, or they're not listening to you, or they're not putting that into place, or you don't feel comfortable bringing that up, that's a major systemic failure. And leaders adopting some of the things we spoke about, some of the ideas, and there are other ways to approach this too. As you and I spoke about before this is my kind of pathway, my solution, and this might evolve over time. And some people might have better ways to solve this problem, but or more effective ways to solve this problem, and that's great. Please let us know. We're here to learn. But for them to either ignore that or do not feel comfortable that's a violation of the Hippocratic Oath. And when you have a psychologically safe environment and people are comfortable bringing that up to you, you're going to have best practices, and best practices at that time are going to help people, save their lives, get them the proper treatment, help them feel connected. I know a lot of the research I've read that maybe it's not tangible, maybe it's not measurable, but positive feelings with patients and thinking that their doctor has their best interest in them, whether it's psychosomatic or whether it's placebo effect, we haven't really measured that, but that belief in their doctor helps them recover from whatever they might be experiencing quicker and better. And when you don't have that confidence, or the doctor is unwell or dejected, or they're no longer believing what they're doing because the system put them in that position, the violation of not only your psychological safety as a physician, but you're no longer able to carry out the most sacred oath and the most important thing that you swore to as effectively as you should, or as you can.
Thank you so much for that. I think we did talk a little bit about this in preparation, and we talked about, obviously when you're dealing with a systemic issue, you're looking at years or even decades for things to change, even with the right people, lobbying for it. So there is that sort of element of, trying not to get too stressed and strung out by things that are out with your control. Just try and concentrate on the things that are in your control, that you can chip away at, and hopefully make a difference that way. And I think, not wanting to put too much of the onus on personal resilience, because it's, constantly people are saying, you need to become more resilient, as a doctor. You and I both know that doctors are already some of the most resilient people out there. You can't deal with kind of the heartache and the tragedies and so on without being emotionally resilient. So it's however, having said that, it's maybe a different type of resilience than the one we're used to seeing when we're dealing with patients, and it's still worth concentrating on all of the things that you suggested before, to help yourself deal with these things, while we're waiting, for the system to change at the glacial pace that it will take.
And what I find unusual about this is doctors, physicians. You are the Navy SEALs of, or SAS for British. You guys are the Navy SEALs of the medical force. So what you had to do to get where you're at has been mental and physical gymnastics beyond anything that people could really fathom. And for you to either feel that you don't have purpose, or feel dejected, or feel overwhelmed or burned out, it's not resilience at this point. Yeah, we need to increase self-efficacy. Yes, there are coping techniques, but there's only so much you can do. You can be the most fit person in the world, but if you're buried by an avalanche, and you're what are you going to do at that point? And
yeah,
I think that's what a broader conversation needs to be, that these are our brightest, our most durable, our most mentally flexible people in our country or in our community. Why are they feeling like this? And I just think those questions need to continue to be asked. But you and I've also brought this up, that I think the time for questions are done. I think now it's time for action, and it's time for people to listen and find what from physicians, find out how they're going to. It doesn't have to happen overnight, but how we make progress and how we start making steps and make people feel to promote self-efficacy, to get them back engaged with their job, and ultimately help people live their best life and live well.
Yeah. That's great. I love that. Avalanche analogy. That's a really powerful, kind of mentally evocative analogy. Thank you for that, and thank you for everything. Thanks for your wisdom and your time. I think we're going to draw this to a close now, but before we do, I just want to give you the opportunity to share with the viewers what things you're up to at the moment, in what way people can reach out to you, how people can network and collaborate with you, what your social media handles are, all that kind of stuff.
So I'm really big on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really the only social media that I use, more just for professional stuff. And I love the community I got involved with, not only in the physician community and people who work in healthcare, but also the sporting world. So I really kind of dabble in both. And at the moment, I just love, I love the crossover of that and the challenges and the new things I'm learning. Like, again, like I said, I hope 5 years from now, I'm like, oh, those ideas are old, because I've learned so much. So I do a lot with that on LinkedIn. I'm involved in writing a book on high performing teams and athletics through the lens of self-determination theory. So I'm interviewing coaches from all over the world and many, many different sports. Like I had the head of New Zealand netball, women's netball I interviewed. I interviewed the former Springbok rugby coach, but I've also interviewed women's volleyball coaches and baseball coaches and American football coaches. So I'm looking for people who are involved in cricket. I know that's a little bit tough to find here in the United States, but if you're involved in cricket and you want to talk, that's big. And then I'm also developing a free website for free yoga. So I do yoga on Monday nights with a group of triathletes. So I just do it right from my basement. And I'm setting up a yoga studio in my house. And for doctors and athletes alike, I do a really easy, really digestible form of kind of like blend of hatha and yin yoga. It's not a workout. It's more about restoration. It's more about relaxation and recovery. So it kind of, again, minimizing those barriers to entry. It's a very, very simple form of yoga that will help people recover, whether you're a physician or whether you're an athlete. And that should be live hopefully in the next month or so. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm up to, but always learning, always looking for new opportunities. And I love engaging with people like yourself and just making new friends and really learning along the way, because my most enjoyable thing I do is learn. It's my favorite hobby.
Well, we can tell that, you know, you're very animated when you're talking about that. And I thank you for the opportunity you've given me to learn from you. I always learn a lot from you, but I've learned even more today. So thank you for that. And we'll put the links to, you know, maybe your email address, your LinkedIn handle, and your upcoming web address in the notes on the video. Yeah.
Fantastic. I appreciate your time, and most importantly, I appreciate your friendship. I've really enjoyed our group, and I really enjoyed getting to know you, not only learning from you, but most importantly as a friend. So that's been really, really enjoyable for me.
Oh, cheers, mate. Well, I think that's one of the best things about the pandemic, isn't it? We're spending more time online, but we're networking more and collaborating more and making friends, you know. And you're in Chicago, I'm in Nottingham, England, and I hope we'll meet sooner rather than later. But you can, you know, foster these good friendships and good collaborations regardless of where you are in the world now. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really cool thing.
Well, I will let you go. You have a day of work ahead. So have a fantastic day, and I'll see you for part 2.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.